know this: the evolution is complete. Today, President Obama made a historic announcement, coming out as the first president in our nation's history to support marriage equality.
At a certain point, I've just concluded that, for me personally, it is important for me to go ahead and affirm that I think same-sex couples should be able to get married.
Now it's looking like Vice President Joe Biden's endorsement of marriage equality over the weekend was less a gaffe and more of a rolling out of the president's announcement for today. President Obama's leadership on this issue is needed now more than ever after North Carolina on Tuesday passed a radical constitutional amendment to ban same-sex marriage. And while this is clearly the moral thing to do, and it moves the United States a step closer to joining the 21st century alongside nations like Argentina, Belgium, Brazil, Canada, Iceland, Israel, Mexico, the Netherlands, Norway, Portugal, South Africa, Spain, and Sweden that recognize same-sex marriage. This announcement doesn't come without political peril. Today, Mitt Romney spoke out against gays and lesbians marrying each other.
I do not favor marriage between people of the same gender, and I don't favor civil unions if they're identical to marriage other than by name. My view is that domestic partnership benefits, hospital visitation rights and the like are appropriate, but that the others are not. So
now this will be a major topic of debate heading into the general election. And Republicans will use it to inject what they call morality into that election, to distract voters from the Romney-Ryan plan to give $3 trillion in tax breaks to the top 1% and rip away the social safety net from the rest of us. At the same time, with a majority of Americans now supporting marriage equality and the president finally taking a stand on this issue, he'll be able to use the bully pulpit to get even more Americans on board with equality. So just how important is today, and what does it mean moving forward during an election year? Chris Geidner joins me now. He's the senior political editor at Metro Weekly, DC's LGBT weekly paper. Chris, welcome.
Thanks,
Great to have you with us. I just did 3 hours of national talk radio on this topic, and here are some of the takeaways that I got from this. I'd like you to reality test them with me. Number one, because so many people have come out in the Larry Craig generation of people who just stayed closeted and had sham marriages and things fading away and dying off, most people realize that they have gay friends, they have gay neighbors, they have gay relatives, and that they're not weird or dangerous, and thus this movement is just as inevitable now at this point in time as the civil rights of the 50s and 60s were after Truman integrated the military and suddenly white people were exposed to black people and realized not a problem. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the clear changes over the past 2 decades has been, since the Defense of Marriage Act was only passed into law in 1996 by a Democratic president, is that there has been a generation of people coming of age knowing somebody who's gay. And that change, knowing LGBT people, knowing somebody who is going through that, whether it's at work, whether it's at home, whether it's in your place of worship, it really puts you in a position where you have to take the theoretical of what is equality and look at this person that I know.
Right.
And we saw that with former Vice President Cheney.
Yeah, with his daughter. And having, there are those who say that Obama's going to lose support among African-American voters. I had a lot of African-American voters call into my radio show today, and many of them were saying, A, the African-American community has much bigger problems than worrying about gay marriage. I mean, the average net wealth of African-American families right now in the United States is a little under $6,000. White families over $87,000. I mean, they got a serious problem there. And B, that to the extent that that community may be homophobic, that now you've got an African-American president speaking out on this issue. He's going to lead that community toward more acceptance of gays within their own community. What do you think?
Well, I think that in tomorrow's issue of Metro Weekly, I have a cover story looking at where the LGBT movement is. And I talked to an attorney in Cleveland, Ohio, Leslie Huff, who had attended several of the marches over time, has been involved in passing anti-discrimination laws in Cleveland, in East Cleveland just recently, and she said that her experience is that, I mean, looking at the Congressional Black Caucus, which is one of the most supportive of the caucuses in Congress
Of
for
marriage equality.
LGBT equality,
Right.
looking at early supporters of marriage equality, people like Julian Bond, people like Jesse Jackson, and that there is a lot more to what's actually going on within the Black community than a lot of the sort of surface level discussions that have been had on this topic.
That people are acknowledging. There's also there were a number of libertarians who called in and said, you know, I hadn't been with the president before, but now the libertarians are kind of schizophrenic. There's the, you know, I refer to them as Republicans who want to smoke dope and get laid. There's the, you know, let's be free about social issues, which is a point of agreement with progressives, and then, you know, economically they tend to go with the top 1%. A number of libertarians called up and said, you know, the president is standing up. This is a courageous stand. This is consistent with our values. I'm going to vote for him. You think he's going to peel away some of the Republican libertarian voters?
Well, I definitely think that this announcement makes Governor Gary Johnson's libertarian campaign for president much more difficult. This was the primary issue on which he believed he could draw over some of the Democratic support for his campaign. In a discussion that I had with him recently when he was in D.C., that was the one issue that he could really point to on being able to draw out people on the left and not just from the right, since in the past he has been a Republican. He was a Republican governor.
Yeah. So if the president comes out in favor of pot decriminalization, that's all over for
it's all
10% of the Republican Party. I mean, and also that this is going to help him with fundraising, not just in the gay community, but in the community of people who have gay friends, neighbors, relatives, just in general across America.
Well, I think it's been clear really since back in the beginning of the Obama administration. Remember back in the first summer when the DOJ filed this brief in a DOMA challenge that used some really antiquated language about the fact that DOMA isn't even discriminatory because anybody's allowed to marry. And that change over time, just in the past 3 years, both in terms of public perception and in terms of Obama's position on it, has really changed the way that those people are going to look at the president.
And that's a fine thing. Chris, thank you so much for being with us
Thank you,
tonight. Appreciate it. And thanks for your great journalism. Let's hope that if, or I should say when, Republicans try to use the president's announcement today against him during the election, that the American people will recognize just how out of touch the Republican Party is today with American values, and why this nation has come too far to rally behind relics like Mitt Romney and the Republican Party. More on this topic coming up in our Rumble in just a few minutes.